with an update on Kenny Omega returning to action and a new report on anti-AEW sentiment among WWE stars. This is Wrestling Hub. My name is John, and you're watching the Wrestling Report for December 24th. Before we get into the rest of the video, make sure you subscribe to Wrestling Hub and turn on all notifications to stay up to date with everything in the world of pro wrestling. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at WrestlingHubOfficial and also follow us on Twitter at Wrestling_Hub. Many have been critical of AEW due to their talent making a lot of references to WWE. On his Hall of Fame podcast, Booker T praised MJF for not taking shots at WWE. He's the smartest guy out there, bar none, as far as the situation goes. As far as the internet goes, making people buy into MJF. It is not a discussion about whether he can fly, or how good of a grappler he is, or anything like that. It's about MJF, and that right there is something uncanny for today's wrestling and the way younger guys go out there and do it. He could be trending for saying WWE sucks, and the guys there suck along with it. He could be easily trending for saying that. Some of these wrestlers actually think about their bank account, how much money they could make in this business. Some think this way, and MJF is literally the best to actually just make that statement right there. With MJF noting that he will go to whatever promotion offers him the most money when his AEW contract is up in 2024, it'll be interesting to see if he makes the jump to WWE. Prior to his feud with MJF, CM Punk was seen facing younger stars as he told ESPN Sports Nation that this was done by design. Very selfishly, it's what I wanted to do. You take 7 years off from something you're pretty decent at and kind of have pride in yourself on having your finger on the pulse of everything. I think there is an undercurrent, and there's a lot of young professional wrestlers out there that are probably better than a lot of people give them credit for, and they don't have the spotlight. They don't have anybody that's saying, hey, look at this guy, or they do, but just not on a national level. I think I can use my name, whatever value that has, and kind of highlight some of the guys while knocking off some ring rust and moving myself up the ladder. For storyline purposes, it makes sense to me, and I always remember guys helping me, and they were few and far between. And I think more people should help more people, and I'm just trying to do my best to do that. On Dynamite this week, Punk, Sting, and Darby Allin were able to pick up a win against MJF and FTR, as there's sure to be more to come for this rivalry. During that same interview, Punk named several AEW stars that he has been impressed with, saying there's so many, honestly, there's so many guys. I think the future of AEW is in such good hands. Most of the younger guys that we have that we're going to wind up spotlighting in the next 5 years or so are in their early 20s. Britt Baker, Hook, I mean, everyone seems to love Hook, and the guys had one match. I just think we take our time with our talents. AEW as a whole is still a baby, 2 years old, and we're going to be moving to TBS in the new year. That's a big step. And just taking time and fostering the new talent instead of just kind of throwing them out there and having a sink or swim attitude, I think helps. Daniel Garcia is a guy that I think is phenomenal. Powerhouse Hobbs, Ricky Starks, I'll forget so many people if I name them. I just think that the future is very, very bright. After watching Drew McIntyre face Sheamus on SmackDown earlier this month, Cesaro noted during a backstage interview that he has never had a match against McIntyre and would like to face him. Speaking about this with Bleacher Report, McIntyre said a bout between the two will happen. Oh yes, Cesaro is definitely on my list. I have to mention him any chance I get, and the fact we haven't faced each other considering we've been on the same rosters over the years. We've both wrestled 20 years apiece. We've never had a singles match, which is pretty unbelievable. I've been seeing a lot of chatter on my social media that he also brought it up this week, so I think it's only a matter of time before that match happens. Britt Baker has been enjoying her reign as AEW Women's Champion as she recalled one of her matches from this year that stands out. She said her lights out unsanctioned bout from St. Patrick's Day against Thunder Rosa helped women's wrestling overall. I'm biased, but of course I believe that. And it's not because it was just a great match or it had cool stuff, or even the fact that it had the hardcore elements to it, but it just built such a strong foundation for the women's division. It added legitimacy to the women's division that was just so under fire. To say not only it was the best of our women's division or women's women's of wrestling, but all of wrestling. That's pretty freaking cool. That's something you dream of your whole life, having a match that people talk about. So to accomplish that this year, and in my opinion, I'm still pretty early in my career, so it's just really hyped me up to keep going and makes me really excited for professional wrestling and the future of women's wrestling in general. It turned a lot of people the other way to say, hey, wow, AEW's women, they really have something special there. You just have to give them a chance. That to me is the most important thing, that it was finally something positive and something everybody was excited about regarding AEW's women. And that's the part that will always kind of break my heart, that match had no fans present, just because fans are the heart and soul of professional wrestling. Most hate me, which is fine. It's just something that at first I was really sad about, but then I channeled that energy into thinking that's what makes this so special. Then this match got the reaction that it did with no fans. There weren't 20,000 people on their feet at the end of the match. When we walked back through the curtain, it was our own roster. It is its own special little check mark that this had no fans, and it still was what it was. At the Battle of the Belts on January 8th, Baker will be defending her title against a former champion in Riho. With AJ Styles and Omos splitting up during Monday Night Raw, it was reported that there are big plans for these two individually, as this has appeared to speed up this team falling apart. On Legion of Raw, former WWE writer Vince Russo took a shot at the booking of AJ Styles. I hate to say this, just the way they're doing these things, there is not enough of a build or anything for that matter. There just isn't enough of a story. There is not enough involvement to make anybody care. It needs to mean something. This is not AJ's fault, and neither is it Omos's. But I have to ask you, what have they done in this relationship to make me care about this breakup? There is no emotional attachment for me whatsoever. Okay, so we do this and next week's the match? What? With Styles and Omos set to face off on Raw next week, we'll have to see where these two stars go from here. Speaking of former WWE writers, Jim Cornette recently took to his podcast to talk about the ongoing program between Austin Theory and Vince McMahon. While it seems like there are big things planned for the young star, Cornette noted that Theory isn't doing enough. So now Vince likes his spunk, and so now he is doing recurring things with Vince. I saw this clip where Austin Theory is doing everything he can with what he has been given to work with, but he is sitting there and having to react to things that Vince is saying rather than saying his own shit. And therein lies the problem. He is just sitting there with Vince and nodding when Vince does what you are doing. You sound clearer than he does. After Dark Side of the Ring's Plane Ride from Hell documentary came out, Ric Flair was on the receiving end of backlash as many urged AEW to not hire the wrestling legend. While the Nature Boy lost some opportunities and endorsement deals from this mess, the Wrestling Observer newsletter has noted that Flair has been bringing in a lot of money. For a time, it appeared that Ric Flair was done as far as marketing goes from the fallout of the Plane Ride from Hell show on Vice. He apparently was filming an energy drink commercial this past week and has been back doing autograph signings. One promoter who Flair canceled out of this past week noted that the advance orders for him were over $10,000 when he pulled out. Former WNBA star Lash Legend at her in-ring debut match for WWE aired on 205 Live on the 17th. While this should have been a big moment for Lash, Dave Meltzer would note that this bout did not go according to plan. I didn't see the match, but within the company and outside there was a ton of talk about the debut of Lash Legend, which aired on December 17th, 205 Live show in a match against Sarray, who would have been one of the most experienced women on the NXT roster. Even not seeing it there would be a huge size difference. Those who just saw the match on 205 Live noted how it may have been the worst match on a WWE broadcast this year, and it was back to ripping on the trainers and such. From internal sources, we were told it was one of the most edited matches before it aired, and it was described that they cut it down to 3 minutes of highlights, and it in that form was still the worst TV match for WWE this year. Legend would be the most accomplished woman athlete on the roster by a wide margin, although that doesn't mean her athleticism as a WNBA player, although short-lived, and college basketball star transfers to pro wrestling like the athleticism of a Belair or a Flair. Back in October, Rhea Ripley would note that her gear bag was lost, which contained her women's tag team belt. In the Wrestling Observer newsletter, it was noted that a fan tried to sell her belongings online. The person who evidently stole Ripley's bag when she was on tour in Albuquerque in October, which included her women's tag team title belt — there are multiple copies and they use different belts for the house shows than a television — evidently tried to sell it on social media, both the bag and the title belt. When it was clear people figured out it was Ripley's stolen property, he stopped responding to messages. With AEW on the scene in the wrestling business, this has created a rift between fans and even talent in some cases between the new promotion and WWE. Touching on this topic, Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful refuted a previous report from F4W Online that stated WWE wrestlers saw AEW as a second-rate show. No, I have not heard any talent. I talk to a ton of talent every single day and I never hear that. I never experience that. I hear it a lot with management and people in the office and stuff, but I never hear it with talent. After losing the AEW title to Hangman Page, Kenny Omega is expected to take time away from the ring dev surgeries and heal from injuries. When it comes to making a comeback, Dave Meltzer provided a quick update, noting at this point there is no firm timetable for Kenny Omega's return. With many celebrities selling their properties, the WWE chairman is no exception. Wrestle Purist recently noted that Vince McMahon's mansion in Greenwich, Connecticut is for sale for the price of $32 million. It's a 23,700 square foot home with 6 bedrooms, 12 bathrooms, and a garage that fits 8 cars. If you want to know more about the property, you can go to compass.com for additional details. Following a number of fans tweeting about Tay Conti dating Sammy Guevara when the latter announced he had broken up with his fiancée, Tay is now taking to Instagram to send a message saying, "Can't kill my happiness." Tay deactivated her Twitter due to the rumors, as we wish her all the best. And this was your pro wrestling news update. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.